Hey everyone, this is Bob Miller, and welcome to this session, third day of Rejection Con 2025. Glad to see everyone. I have the honor of introducing both Gary Pica Jr. and Joshua Peskay today, and I want to tell everybody thank you. My name is Bob Miller. I'm the COO of Global Data Systems. We're an MSP, MSSP out of Lafayette, Louisiana, and I have been involved in helping facilitate Rejection Con and was a speaker. I was head of the speaker committee, so part of the reason Josh is here because of the great content he submitted.
Oh, thank you,
And I'm
Bob.
going to turn it over to you, Gary, so that you can introduce Joshua.
All
Go ahead,
right.
Joe.
Yeah. Hey, everyone. My name is Gary Pica Jr. I'm the VP of Marketing at Roost. Wanted to first thank Empath for putting this event together. It's really such a refreshing and fun concept. It's been fun to see some of the different perspectives that have been shared over the last couple of days. Like I said, I'm with Roost. We are an automation platform built specifically for MSPs. We help connect the tools you're already using, your RMM, PSA, documentation platform, really any tool that has an API. So you can automate the repetitive tasks that are eating up your time. Uh, we think things like onboarding a new user, syncing data between systems, ticket triage, even just restarting a stuck agent. We've got over 100 pre-built automations ready out of the box, a platform where you can build or customize any process uh, that you want, and pretty amazing community of MSPs that are kind of going on this automation journey together. But anyways, enough about Roost. I'm very excited for this next session. Joshua is the 3CPO at Roundtable Technology, and he would love for you to ask him what that title means. He's spent his career pursuing his passion, which I think is amazing, which is helping nonprofit organizations build stronger, smarter approaches to technology. I got to spend just a couple minutes this week with Josh, and I can tell you he's extremely thoughtful, candid, brings a ton of real world experience to the table. So, Josh, I will hand it over to you.
Thank you so much, Gary, and it's a pleasure to be introduced by you. And by the way, I did a demo about a month long of Roost almost 2 years ago, a year and a half ago now. Extremely impressed by the product. It wasn't appropriate for the MSP I was at that time, but it had nothing to do with the quality of Roost. And I'll actually talk about some things today where automating some of those repetitive tasks away actually can be a really important piece of some of the things that I'm doing. And Gary did not ask me to say any of that. When we were talking yesterday, I was like, this actually kind of dovetails nicely with some of the stuff that I'll be presenting. So let me make sure I've got the right screen here. Just give me a minute. All right. Share. Just one sec. So we got that. Okay, that's fine. All right. Bring that over here. Bring this one over here. And we should be good now. All right. Everybody's seeing a nice big triangle with a kind of crack thing in the guy in the middle of it. So if all that looks good to everybody, that's what we're going to talk about. So this session is called Boom Happens, and we're going to cover a range of territory here. And so hopefully everybody will enjoy this trip. In the middle of this image, you probably see a triangle, a kind of upside down triangle with the point looking down, that what we've got in the gray shape there. So what I'm going to show you just very quickly is that the triangle is not actually there. And so as we take away the different pieces that go around it without changing anything about the background of the screen, you will note that the triangle completely disappears. And as we put all these things back, the triangle reappears. Now, you know this, I've told you it, you're still going to see it. You can't stop seeing the triangle unless we remove those items. This will come back up a few times in this talk, this idea and why I'm starting off with this optical illusion with a triangle. But we're going to then skip to 2022, a year where I got two fairly mid-career certifications, a CISM, CISSP. Most of you probably know what these are, but they're cybersecurity certifications and not easy to get, not easy to pass the tests, certainly all that. And of course, when I got these certifications in 2022, I proudly announced it to my social media networks, and everybody like that. What I didn't announce at that time was that just a few months earlier, I had been in a psychiatric ward as an inpatient on the locked side of the psychiatric ward. And that was not something initially that I put all over social media, but as time went on, this was something I decided I did want to share. And there's a lot of different reasons for that. And we're going to go through a lot of these reasons as we talk today. Now, alternative Title I for the talk, from psych ward to CISSP in 6 months. I did it, and you can too. I rejected this. I think even Rejection Con would have rejected it because, I'm sure all of you would love to be on a psych ward, but who really wants a CISSP? That's just crazy making. So cybersecurity professionals are within a larger group of people, which is all Americans, that are suffering from poor mental health. So in 2022, only 75% of Americans rated the mental health as either good or excellent. That's the lowest it's been since it's been measured, which is about the last 30 some years. And for cybersecurity professionals, only 47%, less than half of cybersecurity professionals rated their mental health as either good or excellent. And I think any of you who work in cybersecurity, and many of you at managed service providers, whether you are specifically in a cybersecurity role or not, certainly deal with a lot of the same kinds of stresses that are related to this. And cyber workers and cybersecurity professionals, and I would say IT and help desk folks and all of that are burning out at a kind of faster rate than other folks in the population. And around cybersecurity pros in particular, the burnout rates were worse than frontline healthcare workers during the pandemic, which is something I can't even believe. I actually still don't believe that's true, even though there's data on it. But that was really, really shocking to me. And I think we can understand a lot of the reasons for this. It's a job where the best metric most of the time is that nothing happens. And most of the things that happen that are notable are bad, which is a very difficult way to go about life, right? Your job, it's nice to, if I paint a wall, for example, the wall was white and now it's a lovely shade of purple, I can see that I did something and made progress. But the idea that I just need to make sure the wall stays white and doesn't become any other, or stays purple and doesn't become any other color, and if anything happens to it, then I didn't do my job. It doesn't feel like you're really doing a lot of positive things and only waiting for negative things to happen and kind of hoping that they don't and hoping they're not too bad. And that's kind of a miserable way to live. And what I want to try to explain and kind of convince everyone today is, let's think about ways we can frame the things that we look at and care about in the cybersecurity profession in a positive way that gives us things to aspire to, not simply things to be afraid of. So that's kind of it. And there is a lot of data on this, but mental health is security infrastructure. The vast majority of cyber incidents, data breaches, and all these things involve combinations of social engineering, where the attackers took advantage of vulnerable human beings who might have been stressed, who might have been tired, who might have been in a hurry, who might have been afraid that their boss was going to yell at them. And so they complied with some social engineering tactic, trying to get them to do something, reset a password, whatever. I think everybody's familiar with these kinds of social engineering attacks. And also, a lot of attacks are related to misconfigurations and mistakes that are made, again, because of stress and overload and all of these things. And again, I swear I'm not like plugging Roost, but using platforms like Roost to automate specific things so that there's less mistakes for the humans to make and there's less stress on the humans so they can focus on more high value things. That's actual, real, positive cybersecurity metrics that you can achieve, as opposed to just waiting for bad things to happen. And when you're not doing those things, your personnel are getting more stressed, more burned out, and you're actually making your company and your clients significantly more vulnerable, which is not intuitive, I think, for most managers and owners of MSPs. Now, for those of you not, as well versed in mental health and therapy terms as I am. I don't know why you would be. There's what are called cognitive distortions, which is part of the cognitive behavioral therapy framework, which I'm not going to do an entire lecture on at the moment. But I think that if you read some of these things like polarized thinking, all or nothing, either we didn't have any cyber incidents and we did good, or we did have cyber incidents and we suck. That is polarized or black and white thinking, which a lot of us can get trapped into. Mental filtering is, I got praise from folks and we did good things like 100, out of the last 101 days. But then on one day, we had a bunch of bad stuff happen. And all I'm going to do is focus on the bad day that happened and feel crappy about that and ignore all these positive things. There are a lot of these cognitive distortions that hopefully, as hopefully reasonably healthy folks, you have not as badly as I do, but you probably have them to some degree. All humans will do these kind of cognitive distortions. And again, that's partly why I start with the triangle. These are things that are there that we see, but they're also not there. And that's really difficult for human beings to kind of hold those two things together. But that is what those cognitive distortions are about. Now, cognitive distortions, we're going to distinguish from cognitive biases, which most of you probably are familiar with some of these. So we have confirmation bias, right, where we only seek out evidence that supports the thing we already believe. I think we're a great MSP. I'm going to look for all the ways that Roundtable Technology is a great MSP, and then I'm going to get search results that will tell me that, right? That's a very dumb example, but of confirmation bias. We do this consciously and unconsciously. You do it when you ask for advice. You will unconsciously, right, seek people out who you think are going to give you the advice that you want to hear. That is an example of confirmation bias that you won't even be aware of. Right? You'll think you're going to somebody and asking for advice, but really you're asking for confirmation of the thing you already believe most of the time. Then you've got the availability heuristic, which is what are the things that I should actually be paying attention to versus what are the things that are screaming at me from the emails and the headlines and the radio and all these other things, the podcasts, right? That is an example. So let's walk through some of this. And by the way, the confirmation bias and things are, the only people I disagree with, they are biased. That is another bias that people actually have, is everybody thinks that they are less biased than other people. I do, you do. I think I'm less biased than you. You think you're less biased than me. We're both wrong. We're both biased. Lots of different ways around lots of different things. You cannot be. You're a human being. And as we go through this, I'm going to kind of walk through a lot of reasons for this. My father introduced me to these two terms. He studied psychology in the early 1960s and came up with this idea of simple-minded and muddle-headed. So simple-minded, I trust the data only. I do not trust my intuition at all or anybody else's. I only trust data. And muddle-headed is that I only trust intuition. I do not trust data at all. I only trust the intuition of me and other people. Okay, and both of these are flawed ways of thinking. And that's why I kind of love this phrasing of simple-minded, muddle-headed. And to do that, we're going to walk through a very quick little exercise. So which do you intuit is more dangerous, a cow or a shark? Now, everybody, of course, knows I'm trying to trick you, but I'm thinking most of you will say, I'm pretty sure a shark is more dangerous than a cow. Now, of course, I can show you an actual real statistic. This is actual data, which is in the United States, the average number of people that die every year in relation to some incident with a cow is 20. The number of people who are killed by sharks is actually a little bit less than 1 per year. That is actual hard data, statistics from U.S. government around deaths from animal attacks and animal incidents. Okay, so we have to understand base rates. And the easiest way, if you're not familiar with the term base rates, if you're not a statistics nerd, okay, is to imagine that right-handed people commit 90% of all base rate errors. Now, does that mean that right-handed people are more likely to commit base rate errors than left-handed people? No, there's just 90% more right-handed people. And that's an example of a base rate error, XKCD. Hopefully you're all like MSP nerds. You hopefully are all XKCD fans. If not, you need to become one. You need to get the book What If by Randall Munroe, and you can thank me later for all of that. So if we look at the base rate, this is a little bit harder data to get, but basically the average American spends about 4% of their time outdoors, where you, in theory, could interact with a cow. Most of us don't have cows inside unless you watch that TikTok show where they cook with the cow. If they get killed, by the way, I'm going to feel very bad about this whole presentation. And by the way, if you haven't seen that TikTok channel, I don't even have TikTok, but someone shared this with me. Actually, a cybersecurity person, Daniel Meisler, who runs Unsupervised Learning, shared the cow cooking, and they're amazing. Anyway, about 4% of our time spent outside, about 0.01% in the ocean, where you might get attacked by a shark. So when you correct for the base rate error, it turns out it's about flipped, which is very funny to me. That was not intentional that the math works that way. It's just how it worked out. Sharks turn out to be about 20 times more dangerous than cows if you had equal exposure to both of them, which again doesn't really line up with our intuition. I don't know about you. Sharks feel to me like 100 or 200 or 500 times more dangerous than cows. I have no problem hanging out around cows, but I would not feel comfortable hanging out around sharks. Although if you watch scuba divers, they actually do. And so I suppose this makes sense. But anyway, that was not intuitive to me at all. All right, so you have these two things, both of which are true. You are 20 times, as an American, more likely to be killed by a cow than a shark. But sharks are approximately 20 times more dangerous than cows if you had equal exposure to both of them. Both things are true. So the simple-minded idea is that I'm more likely to be killed by a cow than a shark, data only. Muddle-headed is sharks are more dangerous than cows. I only know what I feel about sharks. All right? Unless, of course, you have to worry about this sort of thing.
Oh, telegram, just a moment.
And no one under the age of 40 knows that reference, but that is from Saturday Night Live from a long time ago. That was Chevy Chase as Land Shark. All right, so both intuition and data are very helpful to understand reality. And understanding reality is something that is extremely important to me, because when I don't understand it well, I wind up inside of a locked institution, which is, not a place I really want to be. Now, there's even more to this. Okay, this is a wonderful book called An Immense World by Ed Yong. And in this, he talks about this idea of an Umwelt, which is, the Germans have all the greatest words. Umwelt is a German word, and it describes the kind of experience of the world that we have based on our senses. So the way an ant and a dog and a horse and a cow and a shark and you and me all experience the world are all very different, because we have different senses, different perspectives, different ways in which we interpret the information that comes into us. And that makes us view the world in a very different way. And there's way too much to detect. And so detecting all of it would be very counterproductive to our genes getting moved on, which is what evolution cares about. So we've developed all of these ways. So what you bring with you affects how you see the world. Trigger warning, okay? Different people seeing this are going to interpret it different ways, right? So you have, left-leaning libtards like me who are like, God, Trump got indicted again. And then conservatives who are Trump supporters are like, God, they indicted Trump again, right? But for totally different reasons, right? We interpret the same data totally different ways because of what we brought to this thing that we then observe. And also what you bring with you affects how others see you. Okay, so now I'm going to be quiet for a minute. You're going to have to listen to some music. I'm going to drink some water, and there'll be words to kind of help you along.
I'm feeling good. It's a new dawn, it's a new day, it's a new life for me, and I'm feeling good. Stars, when you shine, you know how I feel. Scent of the pine, you know how I feel. Oh, freedom is mine, and I know how I feel. It's a new dawn, it's a new day, it's a new life for me.
All right, not about you, but I just want to keep listening to Nina Simone for the whole rest of the talk, but we're going to move on. But I hope everybody enjoyed that. I truly love Nina. She's just amazing. All right, so invisibility of mental illness. So this is me, and that's me talking in front of an audience of 100 or so nonprofit executives in 2021 in the fall, just a few months before I landed in the psych ward. And the episode, of which I'd had many prior to that, that led to my hospitalization had already been going on a few weeks, but this is what I looked like. Now, decompensation is a term that is used in mental health sometimes, and it refers to when you basically become dysfunctional enough that you either need to be hospitalized or some significant intervention needs to happen because you have decompensated. It's a term, for those of you who don't know, actually from mechanical engineering. And compensations, if you think of like an engine, are things like coolant and lubricant and fans and things that keep the engine from overheating when it's under load. And when the compensations, those things that are there, start failing, either because you get low on oil, you get low on coolant, the fan belt breaks, or you put so much stress on the engine that the compensations are insufficient to keep the machine operating, right? Or some combination of those things happen, right? The system decompensates, right? It stops functioning. It is almost the perfect way to describe how I experience episodes that I go through. I have a whole range of compensations, which includes like obviously the therapy and medications and exercise and support networks and all of these things that I've built up over time as compensations for my illness. But sometimes the illness or life circumstances happen in such a way that those compensations are insufficient. And sometimes those compensations start to become harder to maintain or stop working. And so that happens. And that's kind of how you get from what you see on the left to what you see on the right. And I would say an insidious part about mental illness is it is so unseen, that people in your life who could be suffering a great deal may not appear to you to have anything wrong at all. Whereas sometimes, not always, but sometimes if there's an obvious physical ailment, it's more apparent. And so people can kind of interact with that. But as someone who has suffered through this, I can say that walking through the world when in a kind of mental health way, you feel like there's a gaping wound in your chest that is spurting blood, but no one sees it, is very difficult to walk through the world like that. Not that I blame that against anybody, but when you go back to the Umwelt and how you perceive the world, when you're walking around feeling like you look like the thing on the right, but other people are seeing the thing on the left, it's very disorienting, I guess is the way I would describe it. So I don't go crazy. I just stopped going normal for a while. And that is me over there on the left in November of 2021. This is not an actual photograph, by the way, in case anyone was wondering. It was actually a relatively friendly place, and no one was strapped down and getting, at least not generally speaking, and getting needles poked in them. But the original piece I wrote about this is called CISM, CISM in a lime green mask, or CISSP in a lime green mask. When I went, it was right in the middle of the was it the Omicron? I forget, one of the phases of COVID that got really bad in late 2021, I think in October. I forget what it was named. So there was a lot of COVID going on in the hospital. So there were very mask policies and everything. And so when I came in, they had all the psych patients, the regular patients, medical patients had blue masks on, like all the staff and all of the doctors, but the psych patients all got these lime green masks, which felt really lovely to be separated out like that from the rest of the population. But so I called it someone in a lime green mask. But interestingly enough, I was extraordinarily lucky to be in that place, because the reality is that mental health resources, and particularly high quality hospitals, psych hospitals, where people can go to get treatment during emergencies are very few and far between, especially ones that are good. There are not nearly enough beds in psychiatric hospitals to get the number of people that need help. And I was extremely fortunate to be able to get quality help at a time when I desperately needed it. And so it is no joke. Now, at this point, I can proudly announce that I'm literally certifiable by both definitions of the word. So I have met the requirements to be formally recognized by ISACA and IS Squared and a few others since then. And I also may be a danger to myself and others, and therefore I'm eligible to be institutionalized. I would say I'm not really a danger, but I do struggle from time to time to kind of keep my head on straight. And that's, just a thing that we all deal with at times, but for some of us requires a little bit. Anyway, because of this, I have declared myself the supreme ruler of certitude, and that is an actual photograph of me, in case you were wondering. And as the first decree, as the supreme leader of certitude, I would like to declare that I am certain of virtually nothing. That this is about what I am sure of. I'm sure that I am here talking to you right now, and there's not a whole lot that I'm like 100% confident that I know. When I wrote the first piece, a lot of people refer to me as like an AI expert or a cybersecurity expert or a technology expert, all these things. And I always like cringe a little bit when someone wants to call me an expert, because I'm like, I am not an expert in anything. I'm just someone who's trying and learning and experimenting and sometimes failing like all the rest of us. And to me, the most valuable way that I can show up for my clients and my colleagues and my company is to have that kind of humility that I don't think I know too much, and that none of us really do, and that we're all trying to interpret the information around us to try to figure out if there's a triangle there or if there's not a triangle there. And maybe it's both. And what do we want to do about it? What do we think are the best actions we're going to take? And how are we going to know if our actions are working? So what I am certain of is that kindness really matters a whole fucking lot. And this is behind me. You can probably see it there on the piano. My daughter knew that this was an expression that I liked a lot. And she saw this at a market, outdoor market in Minnesota, maybe 5 years ago, bought it with her at age 12, bought it with her own money on the spot and gifted it to me. And I've had it ever since. And that is definitely a mantra that I live by. And I'm certain that kindness is not something that goes awry. And for me personally, I have been the recipient of an infinitude of kindnesses over the years, from the very tiny to the extraordinary. And every single one of those kindnesses mattered. And I know this will sound crazy to you, but I remember almost all of them. A random person who was nice to me in a shopping line one day for no reason other than that they were just kind when I was feeling crappy mattered. It just does. And you never know what's going on with someone else and what tiny little kindness you might provide to them that might just make a little bit of a difference in their life, their day, their minute, their second. And I'm so grateful for that infinitude of kindnesses that I have received over the course of my life and that people give me all the time. So mental illness, you'll notice there's an I there, and it's a little cute, but if we separate out the I and we replace it with a we, you get mental wellness, which I kind of think is, while a little bit overly cute, it's kind of also amazing in the sense that not being alone, not feeling alone with either your own suffering or being able to show up for someone else in their suffering is one of the most human things that we can do for one another, one of the kindest things we can do for one another. And wellness, mental wellness, is really a team sport in a huge way. So this is from an article. I realize there's a lot of words on one page, but as you think about building yourself to be, if you're not familiar with the term anti-fragile, it's from a Nassim Taleb book called Anti-Fragile. And it's about systems, and I have the slides out of order here, so I'll come back to the prior one. Systems that not only are resilient, right, which can endure stress without failing, but systems that actually can fail and then treat that not as like the end, but as feedback. I thought when I went into a psych hospital that would be the end of my life in some way, right? Now I'm a crazy person who's been in a psych hospital. It was anything but that, because the things that I've learned and the processes that I've built and the systems I've built since then have made me such an incredibly more anti-fragile person. And the system in which I live, the people around me, the skills and tools that I have are just exponentially more anti-fragile than I was before. And I'm not going to get into a lot of things that have happened since then, but a lot of things in life have happened since then that have been extraordinarily difficult, that I don't think I could have gotten through, and certainly not gotten through successfully and with being able to help a tremendous amount of people going through tremendously hard things in a really way that felt great to me, showing up for them in that way. And there's no doubt that I would not have been able to do those things had I not been hospitalized back in 2021. And that's what anti-fragility is. So there's no software you're going to buy. Sorry, Gary, but Roost, I don't think, has an anti-fragile module. If you do build one, please let me know. I would be the first to like to trial that. But things you actually can do, right? Or kindness is a policy within the organization. It's not a cultural thing. It's not a value. We don't write it on the thing. It's actually in the policies, right? How to listen, how to de-escalate, how to extend generous, like how to have psychological safety in your organization so that people feel like we are on a team and we are all pulling for each other and we're all working to do it better, right? Doesn't mean you can't yell, doesn't mean you can't have arguments, doesn't mean you can't get mad, but the core of the company is kindness, right? You can actually teach some basic mental health skills to your staff around cognitive distortions and dialectical behavioral therapy, which I don't have to get into now, but organizations under pressure, your staff are feeling a lot of these things, and you'd be amazed at how just a little bit of skill around understanding your own thought processes and the ways that you might be distorting the things that you see around can just provide tremendous anti-fragility to your staff. Practicing holding contradictions. I love this work here at my managed service provider, and it wears me the fuck out. I get really exhausted sometimes, right? I trust my team and I like my team, but I disagree with them often and they're a pain in my ass sometimes, right? I've failed, but that doesn't mean I suck at my job, right? I'm learning, I'm getting feedback from that. So it's not the black and white thinking. It's having space to hold seemingly contradictory things without them having to resolve, right? And design, like this gets to the core of the talk, right? Boom happens. Boom is going to happen. It's going to happen over and over in all sorts of different ways, some of which we maybe can predict a little bit, and most of which we can't. So don't build systems for ideal systems. When you optimize and push your staff for higher productivity, higher efficiency, higher everything, you're pulling slack out of the system. Yes, that's a good thing for profit margins, for other things. I get it. It's wonderful. But if there isn't slack in the system and everybody's operating near the top of that RPM, right, where the compensations are having to be applied at full power all the time just to keep the system from overheating, then when boom happens, there's no room for it. And understand that in your organization, and make sure that people are doing that. And there are ways that you can measure all of these things, right, as positive things in your organization. So for me, I'm dealing with a whole new world of challenges given the nonprofit sector that I work with, and what's going on right now in the world and with cybersecurity, with artificial intelligence, with various governments being somewhat hostile toward nonprofits, right? I am dealing with challenges the likes of which I have not seen before, and I have never felt more ready to take on these challenges than I feel now because of everything that I have been through before that. So I'll leave you with this. The triangle can be both real and not real. Just hold that, right, in your mind. And hopefully, if we can kind of all work on this together, we can.
And I'm feeling
going to be kind of hard to top that. Dropping the mic like that, Josh, that was good. I want to remind everybody, if you got any questions, drop them in chat or do the Q&A. And we don't have any at this point, but gosh, that was a really great talk. I'm, one of the guys that I work with at IR Game, we do these incident response games, and he's in here watching the speech, and he was going, man, we should touch base with you about how to add some more of those human aspects about stress, because we have some in those incident response simulations, but I think it could, your experience would help flush that out even to be a little bit more, have a lot more depth. So it was a great talk about how that all hangs together, and then, how you get to where you are and what you bring to the game when you come in. So I enjoyed it a great deal.
Thank you, Bob. I appreciate that. Thanks for having me here. Thanks for selecting it. I really appreciate it.
Oh, no, yeah. Selection committee, yeah. Rated you high. That was yours was highly rated. And I understand why now, because they saw in the description what it wound up being in real life. So it was a great talk. And again, something that from a cybersecurity professional standpoint, I am relatively empathetic as it comes to these things. So I try to protect our personnel, as much as possible, and try to understand their situation going into these things. But it's such a great, well, you clarified a lot of things that I had gut feel about, but did not really have a structural understanding of. You helped clarify that in a great, a lot. So that was really, that helped me be smarter. So I'm sure the other people that are a part of this, learned something good from there. So because I certainly did.
I appreciate it. Thank you.
Well, I mean, I don't see any more questions. So if not, then we can let them all get on to the next session, which starts in they get about 8 minutes or so.
All right.
Josh, thank you very much for being here, and certainly appreciate you doing the discussion. It was a great talk. So
I really appreciate it. Thank you for having me here, Bob, and thanks for everybody who attended.
absolutely.
I really appreciate it.
Yeah.
All right.
All right. Thanks, everyone, and we will see you.
A couple of my colleagues asked if this was recorded. I assume that these things are all recorded.
This is recorded. Yes, they can always go and register for a $0 ticket and actually go watch the recording. So yes.
Okay, so that's how they have to do it. They just have to register for the $0 ticket, and then they can get all access.
They can go and look at it. Absolutely, 100%.
Perfect. All right, thank you, Bob. Much appreciated.
All right, thanks everyone, and see you at the next session.
All right, bye.